Hello everyone, Eric Chappelle, Civil Community Evangelist for Autodesk, and with me today is Angel Espinoza, Senior Technical Specialist. And Angel's the star of the show today. He's going to be telling you about 10 amazing things that you can do with InfraWorks in just a few minutes. But before we get into that, I just want to talk to you a little bit about our webcast series and about our community. If you're new to the series, this is something we've been doing now for a little over 2 years, twice a month when we can. First and third Wednesdays of the month is kind of our running schedule that we try to stick to. And the goal of this webcast series is to bring you information about our civil products and the features that that are in them that are going to be important to you. Now, a lot of the time you'll hear from our product team directly, but every once in a while we'll have kind of a guest speaker come on from another part of the company, and that's the case today. Angel is from our sales organization, and many people know him to do lots of amazing things with InfraWorks, and we thought it would be great to bring him on just to show us some of those. And actually, he and I were just chatting a moment ago, and he said it was a bit of a challenge to pare it down to just 10 for today's webcast. So I'm really looking forward to see what he has in store for us. But it's a chance for you to hear from us, hear from Autodesk, a chance for you to provide some feedback, maybe ask some questions. I'll get into some details on how you can do that in just a moment. And then it's just generally speaking, an opportunity to bring you guys, our users, our customers, a little closer together with the makers of the products that you use. Our next webcast, we'll have another guest speaker, John Sayer, who's from our marketing organization, who I work fairly closely with, is going to come on and talk about dynamic grading with Civil 3D. If you've been keeping up with the changes that have happened with Civil 3D in the most recent release, you know that we now have feature lines that can link to surfaces and some other dynamic things going on. And he's going to put that together in a presentation and tell you how to leverage those things for dynamic grading solutions. So don't miss that webcast. I'm sure that's going to be a really popular one as well. By the way, today's webcast, very popular. We had some of our highest registration numbers ever. And I think this next one's going to be like that as well. So keep an eye out in your email. Watch out on our various social sites, our community site, for information on how to register for that webcast. Speaking of topics, if you have any ideas for topics that you'd like to see in this webcast series, go ahead and just type them in your questions panel in your GoToWebinar interface. And we keep a list of those, and as we're planning out the coming webcasts, we check those out and grab ideas from you folks. So please, if anything pops in your head now or even later on in the webcast, feel free to type it in there as an idea for a future topic. I have a couple of polls that I want to share with you, and for those of you who are veterans of the series, you'll be happy to know I've got a couple of new polls. We've been kind of running the same ones for a while, so I thought I'd change it up a bit. Here's the first one: is how many people in your company are using InfraWorks? So it ranges from none to more than 10. So go ahead and make a choice there, and let us know what the usage level of InfraWorks is in your company or organization. Is it just a couple of people, just one person, or do you have a pretty large contingent of people using it? And let's see, 68% of you voted so far. I'm going to give it a few more seconds, and then I'll close the poll and share the results. It looks like 2 to 5 is the winner right now with 34%. So let me go ahead and close that. I'll show you the results. And you can see there that we've got the winner at 35% is 2 to 5. Interestingly, it drops off for 6 to 10 and then back up a bit for more than 10. So interesting results there. The next poll question I have is we want to get a look inside your mind and get your idea of what you think the best way to use InfraWorks is. So from the choices there, let us know which one you like best. What is the best way to use InfraWorks? We've got aggregating GIS data, preliminary design, visualizing projects you already did in Civil 3D, communicating with internally or with clients or with the public, and finally analyzing design performance, things like hydrology, bridge line girder analysis, traffic simulation, that sort of thing. Let us know in your mind what you think the best application or the best use of the technology is. And give that a few more seconds. So far, 65% of you voted. I'd like to get that up to about 75 or 80%. And then I'll close the poll and share the results. All right, here it goes. I'll close it. And here's how things turned out. Pretty even spread. Aggregating GIS data was 10%, and then 28, 25, and 33 across the middle three choices. Only 3% said that the best use is for analyzing design performance. So thank you, all of you who participated in the polls, and let us know your thoughts. So I want to tell you about our Autodesk Civil Engineering community. Currently, the location is the URL that you see on your screen. Lots of good stuff here. This is kind of a central hub for all of the different resources that are available for InfraWorks, Civil 3D, and now Recap, Navisworks. A lot more products are becoming important in our space. So this is a great place to get information about all of them. The forum, Idea Station, the new gallery if you want to see what other folks like you are doing with our products. Gallery is a place to share your work, so you can go in there and see what other people are doing, and also post some of your own work for your own bragging rights. It's a lot of fun. People comment, they ask questions. How did you do that, or how were you able to get the software to do this, and what were your challenges? So it's a great place to learn and network with other folks who are doing what you folks are doing. Also, you'll find information on upcoming webcasts here, as well as a full library of all the webcast recordings for this entire series. So you do the math. We've been doing this for over 2 years, twice a month pretty much. So that's quite a lot. That's quite an extensive library of topics that we've gathered over the past few years. I don't think this is going to apply today, but just in case, if we get into any discussions about preview features or features that are in labs, just know that there's no guarantee that anything you see along those lines is going to be in the software until you actually see it in a future release. So don't make any purchasing decisions based on anything you see or that we discussed today that we identify as something we're working on, something in a preview, or something in labs. Ask lots of questions. I'm going to be behind the scenes while Angel's talking. I'll answer what I can, and what I can't I will put on deck for Angel to answer when he gets a break in the action. But questions make a great presentation even better, so please don't hold back. Use the questions panel in the GoToWebinar interface. Unfortunately, because of the size of our audience, we can't open the phone lines. It would definitely sound like a zoo, so we'll stick to using the questions panel. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Angel, and he's going to tell you about 10 amazing things that you can do with InfraWorks. Angel, it's all yours.
Thank you, Eric. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you and can see your screen, so you're good to go.
Fantastic. So we're going to go ahead and begin. Let's see here. When I first learned about InfraWorks, it turned out to be about 6 years ago. I considered this to be pretty groundbreaking. At the time, it was a product in Autodesk Labs called Infrastructure Modeler, and it's gone through a couple of iterations. No, I take it back. It was Project Galileo, wasn't it? Then Infrastructure Modeler, now InfraWorks. I considered it pretty groundbreaking, and what this basically allowed was for us to create various things, and I'll explain. What you're seeing on your screen at the moment are pictures that were captured from within InfraWorks. And basically, I had the privilege of working with quite a number of customers at the time, pretty much across the country, and I was able to create models that represented their different efforts, whether it was housing, business, educational, below ground utilities, above ground utilities, renewable energy, water, wastewater, things having to do with cities, counties, states. Occasionally we were talking about amusement facilities, small fairs and so forth, large amusement locations, whether we were constructing for the future or constructing and planning in other forms, We had recreational sports, professional sports, seaports, airports, light rail, passenger rail, heavy rail, transportation solutions that are tried and true, transportation solutions that are a little bit more innovative, and transportation solutions that are very innovative. Whether we start talking about infrastructure failure, storm surges here in the middle, and potential sea level rise, all of which could be modeled. Whether we're talking about things as they are, or as they might be in the future, or they were in the past, or were a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, all of these different types of activities, models, events, designs, so forth, can be created in the InfraWorks environment, and presenting a story, a reason, a timeline, an organization, a collaboration that is useful to our customers. So my name, as mentioned, is Angel Espinoza. I'm a senior technical specialist. Just briefly about me, I've been with the in the civil engineering community about 33 years, my last 10 here with Autodesk. Prior to that, I was with an Autodesk partner for 9, worked in the civil engineering community for 14, and currently in the social media space, I often use now Civil Angel. At the one time, it was Civil 3D Angel. That is a recap model of me. This is actually me. You may be able to see me. Sitting here in my office. I guess you can try to determine how well the likeness is there of my recap model and my image there. But our goal for today, and as far as an overview goes, our purpose will be to show some of the lesser known and or used capabilities, but very important capabilities of InfraWorks. We'll try to do so within the 60-minute webcast. I think my portion is about 45 to 50 minutes. Attendees will learn the capabilities that may assist them in their use of InfraWorks, that being the payoff. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay, I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to shut off the webcam there. One less thing. Now, when I was first asked to do this particular presentation, I started to make a list of things that I consider to be groundbreaking, important, amazing, things that I found incredibly useful. And the list was rather extensive. It took me a while. As a matter of fact, I reached out to some coworkers and got some additional feedback and thoughts and ideas. And I started to pare this down. So ultimately I selected 10 things, and I'll say the rest of it is honorable mention. Now, whether we revisit some of these topics in detail in other amazing webcasts in the future, or Eric can utilize this list in some form for other presentations. Some of these things might have been covered in previous webcasts. So when I took that into account, although they're amazing, things like the point clouds, which we'll see a little bit of, there's an entire webcast dedicated to that. So I wanted to juggle the list and ultimately make it as appropriate as possible. So here's the list as I pared it down, the things I'll be going through: creating the setting for success, small and big images, drag and drop it like it's hot, analyze this, it comes from the clouds, distorting reality, barriers don't have to be walls, style rules rule, what is the theme, and find your inner Steven Spielberg. So I'm going to go ahead and begin. Just I think I have about 45 minutes left, so let's start. So the first thing, creating the setting, probably one of the most important but fundamental things that InfraWorks is capable of doing, and I wanted to make it clear, this is part of InfraWorks and not part of InfraWorks LT, is the model builder. Now, to get to the model builder, if you're in the primary screen here, I'm going to hit the little plus icon, and that brings up the open and the new and the model builder. And I'm going to go ahead and initiate this. For those of you that are well familiar with this, some of the amazement might be a little bit diminished, I suppose, but for everyone else, what it does is so mind-boggling, and I utilize this so much. So, and we'll talk about the full extent of what this is capable of doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically type in a location. I am fascinated with the Red Rocks Amphitheater. Amphitheater, let's see if it finds that. I guess we can go to Red Rocks, Colorado. Oh, it's not finding that, so let's, Red Rocks, there we go. And there's the amphitheater in Colorado. So it zooms in on that area, and you can see that I can pan and I can zoom and choose an area ultimately that I want it to build. And these are the 4 items that it's going to build. It's going to give me elevational information. There's the specifics of that. I'm not going to get into all the specifics. Bing map imagery that's draped on the ground, building footprints from OpenStreetMaps, and roads of an area that's of my choosing. I'm going to go ahead and bring in the satellite view just to point out this is where the amphitheater is right there. I'm going to pick an area that's a little bit larger than that, not too large just for the sake of speed, and I'm going to assign this to a group, and I shall call this Red Rocks and ask it to create. Now what's going to happen, create the model, what's going to happen is this is being prepared up in the cloud. It may take a few minutes, and certainly depending upon the size, it may take a little bit longer than a couple of minutes, but typically no more than about 10. I'm going to go ahead and close this, but it then builds those data sources in the cloud and puts it together for me, and then appears on my screen. It's already appeared right here. Those of you might have seen it pop up. And in which case I can just ask it to download. Now I chose a slightly smaller area just for the sake of speed. We'll allow it to download, and then it will open. Now what we'll begin to see is things like the surface, the roads, the water features if there are any, and lastly it'll drape in that Bing Maps ground imagery. Now when we start talking about images, we'll see that in just a moment. We'll have lots of different ways to bring in data and images, but to be able to get to this point so quickly and so easily is pretty amazing to me, and continues to be amazing to me, and how I utilize this. Now, what I've had the ability to do and typically do frequently is if I need to get something over to Civil 3D, I'm going to go ahead and open up my next drawing as a part of this, what will be next, but I'm going to get out of this particular model. But we saw just in a matter of a couple moments, I was able to get to that location. So I'm going to bring up this one right here. While that's doing that, I'm going to come into Civil 3D. I'll come over here to my file explorer as well, and here is the last Red Rocks file. It just came in. It's 9:16 in the Pacific time zone where I'm at. I'm just going to drag and drop it into, actually before I do that, one other thing. I'm going to use a slightly modified version of this one that I'd already done one thing, because I forgot to do one thing to my model. Let's go back over here. I'm getting a little ahead of myself with being that I have to be amazing every 4.5 minutes. A little bit of pressure. So here we go. Red Rocks. I'm basically going to tell this model where it is. Now it already understands lats and longs, and if I were to zoom out, we would see basically the entire globe. So I'll go ahead and do that, and we see that where it is a part of the planet. So what I'm going to tell it is the model properties that this is in Colorado Central Zone, US foot, and then put that away. Okay, sorry about that. So now that it knows that, I'll open up my next model and continue. Open up there we are, opening that one up and continue. So what's possible is with the File Explorer, basically what I'm going to do is open up some models, find my model here. There's the one that I just created. Again, now it's 9:16. I'm just going to drag and drop it into my Civil 3D. And what it loaded really quickly was from that SQLite file, which is what InfraWorks creates. Now, I'm going to turn off a couple of items. I'm going to scroll down and turn off things pertaining to the terrain. Turn that one off, turn this one off here, and one more, this one here. And we will see that all of the roads, all of the buildings that were created just seconds ago in the cloud for us are available. Now, if I wanted to bring up something like an aerial map inside of Civil 3D, this has helped me to create an environment quickly, even if my end result will be to work inside of Civil 3D. So here we are, we're seeing the road alignments, we're seeing the building overlays, all of that possible in this regard. Now, the other thing is I can reach right into that InfraWorks model if need be and pull from it. So let's go up here to the one we just created, Red Rocks. It will verify, and this is why I wanted to make sure that the coordinate systems were set the same. It verifies that they are in fact the same. And I'm going to bring in from that and refine my selection set, reaching from Civil 3D right into InfraWorks, thus really helping to explain to people how these two products work really well together. I'm just going to bring in the existing ground, hit OK, open my model, and once one item came across from InfraWorks. So that idea of creating the setting, let me put that in the object viewer, and working inside of Civil 3D, there we are. That idea of creating the setting, whether I'm in InfraWorks or whether I'm in Civil 3D, super, super easy, super, super quick. I'm going to go ahead and close my Civil 3D. I won't be utilizing for the remainder of the time, but just wanted to show that the creation of that setting is very useful. Now, my second topic, small and big, has to do with how well this product works both in the very small, and here's one of the smallest models I've ever created. Someone wanted to show the idea of what a particular pool environment would look like in someone's backyard, and being able to show this in InfraWorks with the sun and the shadows and so forth, and creating all of these things in this rather small environment was something that it could do rather easily. Now, the other extreme would be to create something that's significantly large. One of the very first models I ever created was for an organization that was studying mining in Wyoming. So I'm going to go to my model here, my Wyoming model, and this one will probably take a little bit of the longest time to load. It's on the bigger side, but still only seconds. So whether I'm dealing with something very, very small, we saw the detail of leaves, the grass, the concrete, the stamped concrete, and so forth, and to be able to deal with an entire state. And here what we did was we dropped in the shape files that were showing where different types of permits for different type of mining had occurred. So now you should be able to see the entire state of Wyoming. As I mentioned, it gets placed on the entire globe, and we see the different mining permits in different colors. Now, as I tilt this down, one of the things that truly amazed me about this environment was that based on the size and scale of this particular model, we're looking at and able to see the actual curvature of the earth even as it's represented over this entire model. So being able to deal with the very, very small and the very, very large, something that InfraWorks does very well. My next subject was going to be drag and drop it like it's hot. So what I'm going to do, coming back to my InfraWorks, is I'm going to start off with a blank model and just showing that although Model Builder exists and is able to build certain things for us, I'm going to start with a blank and show what's possible if I wish to supplement data or add data. Now, this particular model, this is probably the oldest model I ever created. You can see some of the data exists that I gathered was from 2011, so 6 years ago. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop something like here, the land XML file of the surface, and just drag and drop it into the environment. It understands it's a surface, it sees the coordinate system. I'm just going to close and refresh, and it will then show me the surface where it exists. This happens to be San Luis Obispo, by the way, and if I zoom out, we can see we're in the California region. The next thing I'm going to do is drag some other items on there really quickly, like the JPEG file. Just drag and drop the JPEG. It has a world file associated with it, but the world file doesn't understand which coordinate system is it. So I'm just going to assign that, choose close and refresh, and then add that in there onto this environment. Now, had that image never existed, it is absolutely possible to add in from this environment here, the add data sources, and add in Microsoft Bing maps at various resolution levels to accomplish that as well. So if I don't have imagery that's georeferenced or georeferenceable, absolutely I can bring in information from Microsoft Bing Maps. So now the other thing that's possible, I'm just going to drag in one more type of item here. That will be from my data sets. I'll grab in a streets shape file, just drag and drop it. It understands it's a shapefile, but it wants to know, well, what should I make this? Do I want to make it trees or parcels or what? Because this is linear data, I'm going to make this roads, and then I can specify what type of roads. I'll just pick a style here rather quickly and choose close and refresh, and all of the shape, all of those center lines of those roads as indicated by the shapefile will be assigned. Now, there's other things I could have assigned the street names to that and mapped it to one of the properties. I didn't do that just for the sake of speed. Now, we're talking about drag and drop it like it's hot. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the style palette here and look up the styles. I don't need my data sources any longer for roadways. And as I choose my different roads, you can see I can just drag and drop another type of road on there, and it changes that road altogether. So whether I'm talking about a 2-lane interstate, maybe with a small skip line down the center, or whether I'm talking about a divided highway, I can just drag and drop things onto these styles onto objects, and I can replace different types of vehicles. I can replace people just as easily. So if I was to create a vehicle here, vehicle, and I'll create this little roadster there, place it in that lane. And if I decide, well, you know what, in this portion, well, there we go, 3D models, we'll go to the vehicles. Maybe I want a different type of vehicle, I can just drag and drop it on there. And you can see how simple it is. This applies to everything. So whether we're talking about materials, building facade styles, lots of other things that certainly could dedicate their own session to, but dragging and dropping is one of the simplest things that can be done. And one of the things we'll find out is just how simple the vast majority of these tools absolutely are. So that in and of itself, it could have been an amazing topic, just how quick it is and easy it is to learn, but just dragging and dropping things is certainly very simple. Now, when it comes to analysis, I absolutely want to talk about analysis and I want to do an analysis, but I started to look at all of the different things that InfraWorks can do as far as analysis, and some of the things that Eric mentioned, things like flood simulation. Where is that? Flood simulation over here, traffic simulation there. There's lots of different types of analysis that are capable of, whether I'm just measuring something or want to do a sun and sky shadow analysis for driver blindness or for right to light or whatever the case is. Lots of different analysis that's here. I had to try to come up with just one or two that I can do quickly. In this particular model, I'll go ahead and do one that I use very, very frequently, and that's just to try to get an understanding of the lay of the land. So I'm going to choose to analyze terrain themes. Now, I don't have any created, but that's not a problem. I can create these rather quickly and easily. Now, first, by default, I'll just call it ELEV for elevation. It's going to elevationally study the ground from 0 up to its maximum elevation of the surface, divided up into six colors. I'll make it somewhat transparent, hit close and refresh, and then that got created. Now, I am seeing that the vast majority of this elevationally is in this first realm here. It's primarily red. So what I'm going to do is change the maximum down to about, let's do 600. And hit OK. And you even saw it kind of in the background as I was changing the number. It's automatically, if I say 650, it's already calculating what that'll look like. So very quick and painless. Now, if I do another one, let's try a slope study. And here there's already a straight out of the box palette called slope palette right down here. And I'll make that transparent. It's going to transition the ground from white, blue, green, yellow, red as things get steeper. I made it transparent. I'll hit OK, and we can see that most of the things are in the flatter ranges up to blue, about 36%. So if I were to come back and change it, and I should probably rename that to slope, let's make that about 35. We can see where some of these ranges are a little bit steeper, maybe 45, right? And we're going from 40. The white, primarily white, is primarily flat. and get steeper and steeper. Now, sometimes flatness is good, sometimes flatness is bad. Maybe I want to determine just where are we flat. So I'm going to do an analysis, only one range. This maybe flat is bad because it won't drain. So I'm going to say from 1 to 5, or it won't drain well. And then we can see the vast majority of it here is relatively flat. And if I change that, maybe it'll adjust a little bit, but the vast majority of it is flat in this particular region. Now, if that's a good thing, buildable space, then clearly I would just change the color of the theme. This is golden, so it's good ground. That's the land that I'm interested in. So being able to do this sort of analysis quick and painless is certainly very, very possible and doable, quick and easy. Now, coming back, theme number 5, it comes from the clouds. Coming back into InfraWorks, I'm going to change my model here very quickly. Last time there was a product webcast, I think it was 2 weeks ago, one of my coworkers, Ramesh, did an awesome job describing this. So I'm not going to get too much in detail about that, but I am going to, for those of you that are perhaps new to this, I am going to give the foundations of this and talk about how this is doable. And then if you wish, you can go back and watch the 1-hour webcast. It's in the library, the history, and get that more in detail. So what I've done here is, this was a particular model I asked for to be built in a certain region of California. I did remove all the roads from it. That's the only thing that's here in what I'll call the master. And someone had gone out and flown this with a drone. They had captured images. Those images were processed in Recap in the cloud, Recap 360 in the cloud, and several things resulted from that. The first of which was there is an ortho image. So I dragged and dropped the ortho image and placed it in this environment. And now, not knowing when the original imagery was captured, right? It was created from Microsoft Bing Maps is all I know, but I don't know when that imagery was captured. I now see this, which was captured the day of that drone mission, right? But the only problem is it is just draped on the ground that was provided to me from the USGS, and there's likely more detailed information. So one of the other things that Recap drone mission provided me was a point cloud. So again, we brought in the point cloud, and it'll take just a moment. As a matter of fact, one of the things I have to do is turn on my point clouds, because I turn that off. I'll turn that back on, close that, and I'm going to go to my point cloud themes. Let's see over here. I have it themed a particular way. I'm going to turn that off. There we go. And there we see the point cloud that's dropped in to the environment. Now, in some areas, if I zoom out, it'll look a little bit better. In some areas, this point cloud is above the ground that came in from the USGS. In some areas, that point cloud is below the ground. And I want to be able to push that point cloud into this existing ground that I received from USGS. Absolutely doable. Here, right here, there's the command called point cloud terrain. It doesn't take terribly long, but I've already pre-done that. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up, there's the point cloud, the one I'm in. I'm going to bring in the point cloud and push it into the surface. And what ends up happening is that point cloud gets analyzed by the software, and whatever points that are considered to be part of the ground are added to the ground. So actually now that point cloud and the ground are one and the same. I cannot go below ground and see something because they basically line up. Now, if I look at the point cloud themes, I had created a couple, and I just want to describe them here. Class number 2, classification number 2 is everything that it determined to be ground. So if I show them all from 0 to 255, these are all of the point clouds and all the different colors that it determined. Some of them are ground, some of them are a little bit more vertical features, like it found a little porta potty that was right there in green. It found some construction items. It found a vehicle. There's a couple of vehicles over there. And it determined, well, what is ground and what is not ground? And as I pointed out, those are the items that are in green. So if I wanted to just show things like what is everything else except for the ground, here would be all of the different colors of what it considered to be the non-ground items. Now, what this will then allow me to do is to refine my model, which gets me to the next stage, right? So I was able to take the ground from that. I'm gonna go ahead and close that. I'll turn my point clouds off for just a moment. point clouds there. I was able to take the ground and push it into the model and giving me a more detailed representation of the ground. And you can see that as I move around, you can see the detail of how that was brought in from the point cloud. And then I'm able to supplement what is the intent. We're going to start constructing homes here. And if I look through the bookmarks, I can see that this is the drone view. You may be able to make out the drone right there, as I get a little bit different perspective. There's the drone now in the sky. And that's what helped us, one, to create the point cloud via recap, but utilize the capabilities here for point cloud terrain, point cloud modeling, point cloud theming to understand that, to incorporate it into the model, and thus get me into the next stage rather quickly. And generally that process takes significantly shorter even from the mission capture, the flight, downloading the data, uploading into recap, getting it processed. We're talking generally within a day versus traditionally other methods that potentially could have taken significantly longer. Okay, so I think that was amazing item number 5. Yep, comes from the cloud. I'm checking my time. I think I'm right on time here. Distorting reality. Now, for this, I'm going to open up a different model. I'm going to open up a model that I used for other reasons, but it'll be useful for a number of my amazing capabilities here. And this particular model that I created, I did so when I found out about the Oroville Dam in California that was having issues. Oh, I didn't close out. There we go. And it started to have structural challenges. There were some flooding concerns and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and bring that particular model up, and I'll use it for the next, I think, 3 capabilities. So Oroville Dam small. Now, I'm not going to get into the specifics of flood simulation today, although it was definitely on the honorable mention list. I'm talking about now distorting reality. And when I was creating this particular model, one of the things that I found, here we are, as I was trying to recreate the environment, was that there's a lot of areas that might be trees, and there's also bushes. And when I went to the style palette, so if I create either stands of trees or rows of trees or other things in far as 3D models go, under the vegetation area, let me make these a little bit bigger, there were trees and there were some shrubs and plants, but there was nothing that I would call a bush. There were some hedges. I think there's 2 hedges, this small hedge and this straight hedge, but that's about it. There was nothing that I would call a bush, as we see as I continue to look through some of these other items. So if I wanted to create, let's say, a stand of trees here, I'll just pick an area to create some trees, and we ended up with these things here. Pleasant looking, they have a significant amount of detail, but I wanted to be able to have bushes intermingled. So what I decided to do was, let's get creative, and I'm going to take one of these trees right here, and I'm going to copy it to one of my other catalogs that I'd already created. And I'm going to take that one there, and I'll take another one over here, I suppose. Let's find one that's relatively flat at the top. Maybe this one here. Now let's do it red so it becomes rather obvious. And I'm going to place it into this other catalog. Now, catalogs are easy to create. I dropped them into my one called landscaping. And I can at any point just come up here at the top, create a new folder. Basically, it's a catalog. I can save these out, export the style, and then save it out here, and then import from catalogs. And catalogs is another, potentially amazing thing. So what I just dragged and dropped were these 2 right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this, rename it, and I'll very simply call this Bush 01. And the next one down, let's go back to my catalog, landscaping. And here's the other one, and I'll call that one Bush 02. Okay, and go back to that. I'm not sure why it's jumping today. But now as I look up here for these different Bush 01 and Bush 02, what I'm going to do is take that and modify it, distort it. So I'm going to say, well, what if the tree was actually, instead of dropped in at its foundation or its base, 0, 0, and whatever roots typically that are underground, I'm going to say, let's push this down about 5 feet and hit OK. And I'm going to do similar to the other one. Landscaping, push 0, 2, the red one, push that down about 5 feet, hit OK. And then, as is possible and what we already saw, I can then just drag and drop these on here. And what we're seeing then is more something that's closer to the ground, right? I'm not seeing the trunk. If I look below ground, the trunk is still there. It's just below ground. So I've made this modification for something that's ground cover, a little closer to the ground, right? So being able to cheat the environment. Now, I've done that with lots of things. I've taken telephone poles where out in the real world, there was just a telephone pole without any cross arms or cross beams. And here, I basically would just take one of these, and I think I'd already done it to this one, and just told it, instead, you're going to be rotated about the x-axis 180 degrees. So it's just going to be the pole sticking up, and I just made sure that the cross beams are buried under the ground. So we have lots of components and lots of pieces that I can utilize creatively, make them really small, make them really large, make them fat, make them tall, whatever the case is, distorting their foundational, true reality, and utilize it in a way that's a little bit more creative. I remember in order to make, from the Star Wars scene, this crash Star Destroyer in the ground that's kind of bent, I put the body sticking into the ground and the tip of another one sticking out of the ground, so it looks like it's bent, right? So we can get really creative with some of these environments. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that bush and those bushes there, because we're going to utilize this in just a moment for some of the next capabilities. So we distorted reality. Now, when it comes to 7, we're going to talk about barriers for just a moment. Now, barriers, if I were to come over here to this other portion of the model, barriers are very commonly considered to be some sort of wall. So if I were to come down here and I wanted to build a wall or a fence, I could come to the create barrier. There's some straight out of the box ones. Here's this gray barrier. I'm just going to double click there and drop that in and show what's doable with that. Now, if I look at my barrier, these are the 2 that are straight out of the box, and I mentioned it's possible to save these and add additional ones. I'm going to import a catalog of already pre-existing barriers that I've created for other reasons. So I'm going to go to my sample data, my catalogs. I've numbered catalogs that I've used for different reasons. So here's my barriers. I'm going to introduce that in here. And we've talked a little bit about, oh, I crashed, interesting. Not a problem, because the awesome thing about InfraWorks is that you don't lose anything. I'm just going to relaunch it. That's interesting. That hasn't happened to me in quite some time, but I am running quite a number of different things in the background. Here we go. Coming back into that barrier, it was the Oroville Dam model, and we're talking about barriers. Time-wise, we're doing really well. It's loading. Eric, maybe now's a good time to see if we have any questions.
Yeah, there have been a ton actually, but one from a while back that I wasn't able to answer. The swimming pool model that you had up in item number 2.
Yes.
Did some of the items from that model come from other products, or was that made of stuff that you were able to find in InfraWorks? How did that come together?
Yeah, I created some of the things in AutoCAD. I had like the footprint of the pool, and I basically just created the shape and extruded it up with AutoCAD and FBX'd it out, which included the little sauna whirlpool at one end, the base body, the other side had a little platform. Just extruded things at different elevations, FBX'd them out. I think I did the same with like the columns of the canopy area, or the gazebo. You can take little buildings and basically just make them little rectangles and extrude them up as high as you want. As a matter of fact, the roof of it, which I can show a little bit of that really quickly. I'm coming back in here. If I wanted to, where's my barrier? It's going to be over here somewhere. I can make a little building that's really, really small, and then just There we are. There's my barrier. Let's show an example of that. Create a building. And here, let's say the roof of that patio, I made something like this. And I made it relatively flat. And I got rid of the material from it. I like to use the properties. I'll be using properties in just a moment, so good thing I brought it up. And then I just simply raise that entire thing up to be the cover of the patio. Maybe it's a little thick still, we'll make it a little bit thinner, right? And that became the cover of the patio. And you can see I did something basically very similar to get the posts on the four corners or the two corners away from the building itself. So lots of ways you can be creative with the tools that exist. Now, so here is my barrier, and as I mentioned earlier, style palette, here's some fences, and it's possible for me to drag and drop even styles like this one that has a chain link. Someone had created one with the material of a chain link, and just we can be creative with that. But another way that these barriers, they don't have to be, and it's not obvious, they don't have to be these things that are created from, if I look at this, basically tells it how tall is it, there's the length, there's the height, there's the width, the thickness, and then here's the materials that get applied to it, right? And it's limited to that, because right here, little known is this filter, and if I drop this filter down or select it, I can choose 3D models. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for cones, and I was, when I first started out as a young man, I did a lot of highway construction plans or detour plans and traffic area handling plans. So I can drop in, let's say there was a lane closure here and things were getting constricted down, and here is the creation of that cone. Now, if I were to use the city furniture and do the exact same thing with the cone, the limitation for me is as follows. I'll just put it outside here. As I drop in this object as a 3D model, I didn't drag and drop the cone, so let's do that. Traffic. I'll just grab the cone. Maybe it's a different type of cone, but I'll just drag and drop it and replace that there. Okay, now, the fact that I have these objects here, all I can do is make it dense or less dense when I'm talking about 3D models, right? But I can't control the spacing. There's no value for me to control the spacing when I create them as 3D models. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete those. If I create them as barriers, one of the things that's possible right there is the spacing. So I can say I want a cone every 10 feet, which is very common and very typical. So there, then I'll go ahead and hit escape. I've placed those cones every 10 feet. If they need to be every 5 feet, I can just make that adjustment in 5. You can see now there's twice as many as there were. So if I then use the measure tool to measure distances, I can go from the tip of that cone to the tip of that cone. Oh, I've got the outside edge, but here, see, we're at 5. So being able to do that with using barriers allows me to place things in a very regular interval. Sometimes I need trees at certain intervals, or I remember a case where we needed solar arrays at certain distances, and I can do that with barriers, something that I couldn't do with any other type of object easily or quickly. Okay. So barriers do not have to be walls. Style rules rule. Now for style rules rule, let's come back to the trees that we were looking at a moment ago up on the hillside. Here we are. So for style rules, I had just created over in this patch, if I'm not mistaken, and I had dropped in a couple of bushes, but this looks very regular, and even though the trees are absolutely been changed in size and scale and rotation angle, I have a thinner tree here, fatter tree here, some of them might be a little taller, some a little more squat, at slightly different rotation to give me that variety. Still, the fact that they're all one species gives me this look of uniformity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up style rules. So let's go here. Style rules there. And for vegetation or trees, let's come down here, trees, I'm going to create a new style rule. Now I have a bunch of them here, but I'm going to create a new one and we'll talk about it. So let's say I want to have miscellaneous trees. And there it is, and I'm going to double click on it to modify it. So I'm going to say, look for an expression. The expression is going to be one of the common things within the model, and I'm going to use the expression of a tag. So I want the tag to equal miscellaneous trees, and I do have to be very specific and careful about the uppercase, lowercase. So I'm going to use that. What did it not like? Probably the quotes. I can't see if it's single. There we are. Single quote. There we are. Choose OK. And so I'm going to look for tags that are miscellaneous trees, and then I'm going to add in, and I can pick different types of trees that I wanted to add. Maybe yellow, just for the sake of visual clarity. I'm going to add some browns and yellows and greens, and I'll hit OK. Now that's a new rule that I've just created. Now, all of these trees, if I look at their properties, have a manual style assigned to them. The only two that don't were the two that I dragged and dropped the bush onto. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to the tag and then type in miscellaneous trees and then update, so that gets assigned to all of those trees. Now, coming back to the rule, I'm now going to run this rule. I ran the rule and nothing changed, because in the properties, all of them still have that manual style assigned to them. So I'm going to remove the manual style. You see that there's now a rule style assigned to them. If I ask to update, now I have trees of various types, various sizes, various rotation angles and so forth, and giving me a much more realistic appearance. Now, maybe I'm not going to use the yellows and the greens and the browns at all the time, but different shades of greens with yellows and so forth to give me that nice visual appearance to my environment. InfraWorks, as we see, is not only able of doing the incredible design for roads and bridges and drainage, which, it's awesome, it's amazing, but didn't make my presentation list today. Some of the graphic presentations, very important to flesh it out to make it look as detailed as possible. In which case, these style rules, they absolutely rule. The ability to use these. Now, let's think about that for a moment. If I wanted to have people, now trees and that stand of trees is the only thing that kind of spread things out over a wide area. If I use 3D models, 3D furniture of people or cars or things like that, it puts them like it did with the cones in a somewhat linear fashion. But occasionally I'll use trees to represent people standing around or milling around, because I can replace them with a rule, and as long as the tag, right, let me come back to that, as long as that tag, and I chose tag, it can be anything, it could be the description, it could be the tooltip, it could be the link, I happen to choose tag, as long as that tag matches whatever the rule is looking for, then it will replace it. So all my trees will stay trees unless they have a tag that they're supposed to be people or they're supposed to be cars. And I've done that to fill out cars on a freeway. I put a stand of trees, replaced them with cars, just realigned the few, changed the rotational angle so they're all going in the same direction. And I was able to flesh out quite a number of things very quickly, very easily. So once again, style rules to me, absolutely, they're awesome. Two things left. What is the theme? So with that, I'm going to jump over to a different model. Any other questions for the moment, Eric, that we can likely address? I will have time at the end to address a few more questions, but as I'm transitioning to another model, maybe we can do that.
One person had the comment earlier that the force is strong with this one. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
I guess the reference to the Star Wars model that you had down there. Other than that, I'm staying pretty well caught up. There were some questions about, obviously some of the items you're showing in the model are not from the standard InfraWorks library.
A few.
People are curious about where those come from, and I guess it's just important to point out that InfraWorks is really good at consuming lots of different kinds of data from all over the place. So it's really easy to beef up your libraries with things that you come across.
Yeah, there's a couple of scenarios, and for sure, under data sources, let's say 3D models, and if I pick 3D models, we can see the different types of files that it'll bring in. 3ds for 3ds Max, DAE, DXF, FBX, and OBJ. Now, one of the things I particularly like is I love Navisworks, and Navisworks I can aggregate or isolate things in Navisworks and then export out to FBX. So that's one of the things I did a great deal of over time, is whatever model I had, if it had a little component of something that I wanted or needed, then I could isolate that thing and FBX it and create my own object from it, kind of a duplicate. Now, the other thing I've done is I remember bringing in a certain FBX, maybe it was a Lamborghini, and the Lamborghini was red, but I wanted to have a blue Lamborghini and a black Lamborghini and a gold Lamborghini. So I brought them into Navisworks and applied different materials to them there, and then re-exported out to have new FBXs. So, you know, when you're dealing with a collection, you have lots of tools at your disposal that allow you to create very custom objects very quickly, very easily. But yes, now the other thing that I tend to do, instead of adding here at the data sources these objects, I like to add objects over here in the style palette. So let's close the data sources and 3D models. I don't know that this one, yeah, this one had some custom object. You can see this ACE landscaping. So ACE being my initials. These were things that I've gathered, like a flagpole or a fire pit. We see this is where I placed the bushes. Things over time that I found useful, and I can save different catalogs and just bring them back in when I need them. So over the course of my, 6 or some odd years using this product, I've looked for things, and I found things, and I bought 3D objects online and so forth that I wanted to have and make available to me. So certainly things like the Star Wars environment. Some co-workers had made, some people had made things in FormUp, some people had made things in SketchUp. And here, if I were to add, ultimately it's the same. I had to get them into this 3ds, DAE, DXF, FBX, OBJ, and SFF is the last one there. Just get them in those formats. And from whatever format they might have been originally, Navisworks is great. I can push out, let's say an FBX or 3ds Max. I can push out a DAE or a 3ds and then bring them in over here into these catalogs. And the catalogs are for when I use things frequently, often, over and over again. Okay. I'm going to continue, and we can answer questions when I complete that part. So I'm going to come back to something we're going to talk about. I think my next topic was, what is the theme? So here, and I'm now in this particular model, and this particular model I'm utilizing because it has lots of buildings and it has lots of roads. And I wanted to know a little bit about those buildings and roads. So I'm going to use the analysis feature themes. So under the feature themes, I'm going to create a new theme, and I can look for different types of things. So here, if it's in the model, it'll appear on this list. If it's not in the model, it won't appear on the list. So it won't allow me to look for buildings if there's no buildings, or it won't allow me to look for roads if there's no roads. So let's look at the different types of buildings, and then all of the properties of the buildings that are possible here. And I'm going to look at roof height. And if the roof height is, let's see here, what do I want? Roof height, I want to have only 3 regions, because I think most of these were 3 stories or less. I'm going to say equally distribute the heights of all of the buildings from 10 to 32. This is the shortest building, that's the highest building. Equally distribute those amongst 3 styles, make them red, green, blue, that's fine. And I'll hit OK. And then now we're able to see that red and greens and blues of all of the different buildings. So if I look at this building here, 3 stories, or the height there with the attic 3, the greens would be 2 stories, the reds would all be 1 story. So that would help me to understand at least the distribution of buildings in this particular model. Now, to that same end, if I wanted to find out more about the roads that I have here, I'm going to say, let's look at all the roads. Let's look at their maximum speed or their speed limits, and we will look at, let's look at individual values. Likewise, 3 reds, greens, and blues. We'll hit OK. And there, all of the different roads that have speeds assigned to them. In this case, the green is 25 miles per hour. The blue is 35 miles an hour. And there's a great many roads that came in likely from the model builder that didn't have any maximum speed associated with them. But I can grab them, I can assign them in mass, do lots of different things. And as a matter of fact, when we use design roads, and I come over here and create a road. Let's say it's going to be a local road, and I just start to pick a style here. Let's pick that style. And as I start to create that road, the very first thing that appears there, you may be able to make it out right next to my pointer to the left. It says speed. That's 30 miles an hour. So things like the design capabilities understand design speeds and design roads, and this is able to identify that. So that's number 9, being able to use theming of objects to help me understand them. Now, item number 10, and this is probably my favorite of them all, find your inner Steven Spielberg. And what I mean by that is, and I'm going to open up just one last model. This gives me the ability to create images and to create animations very, very quickly, very, very easily. And most people believe that I have to be a 3ds Max user, and for those people that understand 3ds Max, it's not something that you pick up overnight. It requires a significant amount of training or learning in order to accomplish things, and it is very, very capable and very, very in-depth. But sometimes I don't need that. Sometimes I just need to do things rather quickly or rather easily. So what I'm going to do here is make an animation of this particular model, which happens to be Las Vegas Boulevard in the city of Las Vegas. So I'm going to bring up the animation panel. It's called a storyboard creator, and here's a storyboard. Why don't I just go ahead and delete that and start from scratch on that puppy. Okay, and I'm going to create a new storyboard. There we are. So the way this works is basically I just need to find where I want to start my model. So let's say I want to cruise down Las Vegas Boulevard for starters, and then look at something else in just a moment. So here I'm going to say I'm going to create a new camera animation path, and I'm also, while I'm at it, I'm going to create a new caption. And that caption, I'm going to slide over here, so start right at the beginning. That caption is going to say Las Vegas Boulevard. Okay, now here, that first sequence, just to make this fast, I'm going to use a slightly accelerated speed of about 300 miles an hour, just so I only have a couple minutes left in my particular portion. And we're going to say, let's go to the next frame. So I'm going to go here, add a new keyframe. I'm going to pause there for about 2 seconds. Maybe I want to look overhead, add a new keyframe, pause there for about 2 seconds, and then zoom into this area, and then end there, and I'll hit OK. Lastly, I'm going to go ahead and press play and move this out of the way, and there we see, get from the first to the second, pause for 2 seconds, get to the next, pause for 2 seconds, go to the last environment, and all of that is part of the process. Now, I can add additional camera actual cinematic terms, cranes, orbiting, zooming and panning, and all kinds of other things, captions and titles when the screen goes black and I'm just seeing the words. Lots of things are possible. I can export this out, make that a video out here, put that on my desktop, and specify the keyframes and the resolution. I'll hit record, and that ultimately gets created. So I was able to create my path and the video here, in this case, because it's brief, not too long. It calculated the time at the speed that I specified to get from one location to the next, and it is now created. So if I put that on my desktop, or I look at my desktop, let's look at the desktop now, put them in order of creation. Should be at the top. Let's zoom up to the top. There is my video that was just created here in a matter of seconds. Las Vegas Boulevard, zooming up, panning over, pausing, just like I specified, and bring that down. Now, for the sake of speed, obviously I'm doing something rather quick, but we all get the point. I just realized, Eric, I did go a little bit over, but these amazing things sometimes take a little bit of time. So there's my list of 10 amazing things. We saw the list earlier, potentially other amazing things that we kind of squeezed in 1 or 2 additional as a part of this discussion. Summary, absolutely lots of things can be done quickly, easily, quick to learn, much more powerful than people imagine, bringing in that and the interacting with Civil 3D, and ultimately it's visually amazing what is possible. Any last questions?
I think I'm pretty well caught up, Angel. There were a few that I wasn't able to get to, but maybe we can follow up with those after the webcast. I do want to take this opportunity to remind everyone about our next upcoming webcast. So I just want to share this this slide with you quickly. And let you know that our next webcast will be coming up on Wednesday, August 9th from 12 to 1. So same time, same place. Our presenter will be John Sayer, and he'll be covering dynamic grading with Civil 3D. Angel, that was a fantastic presentation, and just based on all the questions that we had and the incredible registration numbers and the response, I can see 10 more amazing things you can do with InfraWorks coming up maybe in the future. So don't be surprised if I reach out to you for a return
Certainly.
appearance.
Be happy to.
But thanks for a great presentation. Thanks everyone who attended today for giving us a little time out of your day. Please visit the community often and check out what's going on with our products and with other users like yourselves. And we hope to see you on August 9th for our next webcast. Have a great day, and thanks again.